Hey everyone, I'm Greg Jones.
And I'm Brendan Baker.
And welcome to another episode of Intellectual Horsepower, Engine Builders Podcast, all about racing and performance. And this week we have a whole lot more news in the racing performance industry, specifically with some racing sanctioning bodies. But we start today's episode with Lewis Hamilton, who has earned his 92nd career win and has set the new record for wins in Formula One, and frankly has launched himself into the greatest of all time Formula One driver debate with this now. And Brendan, I'll kick it to you. What does this mean?
Well, you can arguably say that his numbers stack up with, he's just being directly compared to Michael Schumacher. And Michael Schumacher, even though he did race at Mercedes, the same team that Hamilton is now, actually Hamilton took his spot.
Right.
The car, it was a completely different car at that point. So in the hybrid turbo era, which is when Lewis Hamilton came in, he was only there a year in the regular V8 era. And so when they went over the hybrids, that's when Mercedes has been dominant ever since. So yeah, they've got 5 championships, and he's won over 70 wins at Mercedes, and 21, I guess, are at so 71 at Mercedes, 21 at McLaren.
And this is his 8th victory out of 12 races just this season.
He's been dominant this year, which a lot of people were kind of like, it's going to be Valtteri Bottas and whatever, but when it's on the line with Hamilton,
he keeps it going. Yeah,
he keeps his foot on the gas, and but that said, he has to be considered at this point, if not the greatest, pretty much in the top 3.
Yeah, most people say his 7th championship is pretty much locked up.
It'll be would that be his record time? I think it's his 6th. It'll be his 6th.
He has 6. He's going.
He has 6 now.
He's going for a 7th.
Okay.
And
if he does that,
then he'll be tied with Schumacher in championships as well.
More wins, but he's had more races to do it. He's had, I'd say they both have had pretty to get to that level. You have to have a dominant car. And Schumacher had the dominant car of that era.
Yeah.
So,
and I was just going to ask, is it even comparable? You get a lot of the Michael Jordan versus LeBron talk.
It's kind of like that.
It's different eras, and this is the case here too.
And going back further than that, you could go like LeBron versus, say, Wilt Chamberlain, or going back to the old, because you've got some of these old drivers that set records early, like Juan Fangio was considered the greatest of all time until Schumacher came along.
Yeah.
And, and then Ayrton Senna, of course he died when he was young, but he, many believed he was the greatest driver there was, but he only had 3 championships. And so, and Sebastian Vettel's not far behind. He's got 53 wins, and that seems like chump change.
Right. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. So again, Lewis Hamilton earning his 92nd career win. Huge deal. Again, looking for his 7th championship. And his first win came 13 years ago, driving for McLaren. And he's looking now at getting to 100 wins and 8th championship.
Yeah, I think he can hit. If he hits 100, and really if he gets an 8th championship, he's only got next year to do it, in my opinion, because in 2022 they go to a new design and everything. They're going to, it'll still be a hybrid, I guess, but they're changing so many things that, it's hard to say whether Mercedes will be dominant again at that level.
Right.
So I think he's got 1 year to do it.
Right. Well, again, congrats to Lewis, and we'll be watching to see if his success continues. And sticking with racing, but moving to NASCAR. NASCAR recently reinstated Kyle Larson after 6 months of a suspension for some comments he made during the iRacing period that NASCAR did earlier this year.
Remember during the shutdown, everyone was
racing from home.
Yeah, racing from home, and they've got all these fancy simulators set up, and but arguably people were saying his comments, he didn't know he was on air, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
What he said is what he said.
Well, that's how everyone gets caught, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You shouldn't be saying those things regardless.
And he's the guy that was from the diversity program. You know,
right.
He's an
Asian
It's
a little ironic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little ironic. He should know. I mean, he came through the diversity program. But NASCAR has a ways to go, and I think they're taking the right steps to redeem themselves and to, have a no tolerance policy. You know, I mean, they basically said you're out indefinitely, and then he got fired by Ganassi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1 day later.
You know, and I mean, everyone knew he could come back. I mean, it was he had to go through all the protocols and things. He had to do sensitivity training.
Right, and credit to NASCAR for setting that up, making sure that he went through those proper channels to prove that he could grow from this and learn from it and make a difference coming out of it.
And he reached out to Bubba Wallace as well, and and Wallace said himself, it's like everyone deserves a second chance.
Yeah, he talked to
especially if he means it. You know, if he's sincere about it. So, which I think he is for sure.
Yeah, he talked to a few black athletes in general, as well as a few black drivers from the past, and Bubba Wallace, as you mentioned. And
who else did he talk to? I guess Jackie Joyner-Kersee.
Yeah, Willie T. Ribs, J.R. Todd.
Willie T. knew firsthand how racist NASCAR was from when he tried to break in the 90s, and it didn't go well.
There's a good Netflix documentary about him as well.
Yeah, that was a great documentary. He was a showboat, but he different era, different times, and NASCAR needs to move past that time totally.
Right. Again, Kyle Larson's getting a second chance at NASCAR starting January 1st, 2021. And he's already been signed to a multi-year contract with Hendrick Motorsports to drive the number 5 Chevy Camaro.
Which is, I don't even know where they I mean, I know number 5 was Terry Labonte, from back in the day, and a bunch of other drivers. It's usually been the car that no one wanted because it wasn't considered lucky. I think Dale Jr. had that team and then was 88. I don't know who's what, but it's a Hendrick team. So, I think he actually improved his situation because Ganassi, they were only going to be, they're not on the same level as Hendrick.
He's also getting paired with Cliff Daniels, who is Jimmie Johnson's former crew chief. So, it's looking up for him. Again, hopefully he's learned from the things he said and the mistakes he made this past season. And hopefully, he's got some luck going forward.
Well, he also has to do a bunch of kind of public search, some speaking engagements.
And that stuff's ongoing till 2023.
Yeah. So which I think is good. He needs to step out front. And, Bubba Wallace is there already. But, it's, guys like Larson and, most of the garage is kind of, they are believers in this, diversity program and really trying to change the culture of NASCAR from inside. Whether it changes the fans, that's one thing.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of Bubba Wallace, his vacated seat in the number 43 has now been filled by ERIK Jones, who will be joining Richard Petty Motorsports. Brendan, what do you think about that move for ERIK Jones and for Petty?
I mean, that's a good move for him, and considering he was going to be out of a ride, basically. I don't know if the ride is the best ride there is, but anytime you're in a Richard Petty car, that you get a lot of attention, and he may bring it forward. I think that program is destined to do something other than ride around mid-pack, and I think Bubba Wallace,
But like you said, he lost his contract to drive the number 20 Toyota for going forward with Joe Gibbs.
Yeah.
Another young driver is given a second chance here with Richard Petty.
Yep. So we'll see how that goes. I think again it'll be a good name. It's good for both Petty and for ERIK Jones because him being out of Cup wouldn't be a good idea.
Right.
Or to be in a really backmarker team or part time. No, this is a good deal for him and for them.
Yeah, he's got the talent to compete here, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, moving off the track and onto the regular streets, SSC Tuatara has now been crowned the world's fastest production vehicle.
Yeah.
It recently went 331 miles per hour on a regular street.
That.
It did a two- two-way drive up and down to adjust for wind direction. Setting a speed at 301 and 331, which averaged out to 316 miles per hour.
That's on the street. So there's this road in Nevada.
Yep.
That is, they shut it off. They block it off.
State Route 10.
Yeah, they block it off because I've had actually a car that I used to be on the crew for in IMSA. When we were done, they sold it to a guy that ran it in this thing, and it did 210 miles an hour, and I almost lost it because I'm like, I can't imagine somebody driving with the nuts and bolts that I torqued down on that thing going 200 miles an hour, But
that's a scary thought.
And then this guy doing 300. I mean, the kind of noises and things. I don't know, 300 miles an hour on the roads. It just 330 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and the guy says there's still more.
It's insane. Yeah, that's the kicker is that he wholeheartedly believes that the engine had more to give, the car had more to give.
Well, it's got a very low drag coefficient.
I don't doubt
helps, but
I don't doubt him.
You get up over a certain, 1,700 horsepower doesn't seem insane this day and age.
Yeah, so
isn't that crazy to say that? Like, only 1,700 horsepower. But, considering you're seeing stuff with 3,000 horsepower, mostly in the torque range, but, 1,700 horsepower twin turbo. Oh, yeah, and it was a Nelson Racing Engines turbo setup.
Correct, it's their mirror image twin turbo setup. That was a part of this 5.9 liter V8. And as Brendan said, 1,750 horsepower behind it, but pushing only 2,700 pounds.
Yeah, that's still
but super impressive. It's beaten out Koenigsegg, Bugatti.
Yeah.
For now, the fastest production vehicle.
Yeah, we'll see if I don't know how much more they want to raise the bar on this and keep pushing the. It is kind of cool to see, hey, everyone wants to know what's the fastest you can go on the street, but you're not gonna, if you hit 400 miles an hour. I think that's a little bit insane.
Well, it's a combination of impressive and excessive. But
absolutely.
Obviously we find it pretty cool, and it's neat to see people pushing the limits like this.
Yep.
So, who knows what's next? Bugatti's got another car out that's claiming, the low 300 miles per hour as well. So
so I think others are going to go after it. I know, like John Hennessy and stuff, he's built some things that could go after it, and
absolutely,
it's fun to. I'd like to see the run. There's probably some YouTube video of it somewhere, but I'd like to see a little more of the car and the engine and all that. But it's pretty cool.
Definitely. Well, going back to the track and to cars that regularly see the high 200 miles per hour and more, we're moving back to NHRA and some comments that Richard Freeman of Elite Motorsports was recently recorded saying that NHRA has more or less lost its way, forgot who its customer really is, with regard to some of the championship payouts for this year. Elite Motorsports has 2 of their 4 full-time teams in contention, and if one of those 2 teams were to win the championship this year, they'd only make $26,000 in prize money.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a top-tier professional level purse. And I get his point. There's no, if you're not really fighting for anything big, I know a racer will drive over anybody for $10 or a trophy, So it's not really a matter of the motivation, but it's the team owners and it's the prestige of it. So if you've got your top prize is only $26,000, and then second's like 5,300 or something.
Yeah.
It's kind of, unless they've changed the overall purse structure to get more payout per race, which I don't know exactly if that's the case, but they're looking at issues where they could have a lot of teams that aren't going to run full-time schedules, So if they do, like this, Doug Foley wrote something recently that got picked up in Auto Week saying how they're, NHRA is not listening to them, that they're not listening to the guys that are single car owners. They only listen to the big car owners. And then, these guys that are barely hanging on are doing, they're racing, but they're not racing all the events, but they're kind of getting pushed out.
Yeah.
So if you get down to where it's 10, 11 cars or 9 cars at an event, you're almost like, what's the point of even qualifying? There's no, you just have your 8 car. You might have, you set a run there and one guy goes home. I mean, that's not really.
And Freeman makes a point to say that, himself included, and a lot of the guys who are in this type of racing aren't in it for the money. They don't necessarily need the money. But to your point, you got to give these teams and these drivers incentive to be there.
And what he's saying is that they don't know who their customer is, and that's the same thing basically Doug Foley's saying.
Yeah.
NHRA has kind of given up the, they're trying to land as many sponsors. They're almost competing with the teams to get sponsors and to get revenue in for the series. Yeah. And they're not necessarily paying attention. If they don't own any of the teams, they don't have any stake in any teams. Team falls out and goes home, they could all go out of favor and go home or go start something else. NHRA would have no product to sell.
Yeah.
So.
And just to back up what Freeman's saying, with $26,000 being a pretty meager amount, Erica Enders has twice won $250,000.
Yeah.
And last year she won $185,000.
Yeah.
So it's a significant drop off, and
even that's
it's
not
tough
huge.
to blame them.
IndyCar has leaders circle program where if you're in the top 20, you get $1 million, $1.2 million, or it's $1 million now, something like that. So, to compete, and those are guys that if you make every race and are in that top 20, you get that guaranteed money because that helps you go on to the next year. And they don't seem to really be fostering and taking care of they need to do something to take care of their teams so they can continue to put product out there and for people to watch it. But it's also the racers, NHRA is really built by guys that race and bracket race, and it's those are the biggest fans too.
Right.
So if the top level disappears, where does it go?
Right.
Yeah,
it's definitely, it could be a domino effect.
Yeah.
And, Freeman says that if these payouts aren't returned to somewhere around that original amount, like you said, he might be pulling out of NHRA full time.
Be a big blow, I think, and
and I'm sure he's not alone. Yeah, you're right.
I don't see Doug Foley doing, and a lot of the part-time guys that show up for some of the bigger events, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So,
hopefully the NHRA can fix that and really determine where their heads are at.
I wonder if they took that Camping World deal a little bit too quickly just to have something, and but it seemed like that deal was roughly around the same amount of money, as maybe even more money than they were getting from Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the other sponsors that have backed out, and NHRA is taking a bigger bite out of it now for other classes, and so we need to look more into that. But I think either way, you got to have the end of the year purse. The prize has to be there.
Yeah. There's got to be the incentive, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, moving into IndyCar, Jimmie Johnson is now going to be racing in IndyCar after calling it quits full time anyway in NASCAR. How do you feel about that move for Jimmie?
Well, I'm ecstatic. I think he's going to bring, Jimmie Johnson's got a huge fan base, and I'm an IndyCar fan. I worked in IndyCar. I love IndyCars. I've always loved IndyCars. It's not the same as the kart day, the early days, but it's still pretty good, and I think they put on a good show. They've got a depth of talent there, compared to Formula One, where you pretty much know within one or two who's going to win. You don't know who win IndyCar from week to week. So, Jimmie Johnson, he's, most guys go from Jimmie Johnson's career in IndyCar over to NASCAR. They usually retire to NASCAR to so it's kind of strange going the opposite way.
Just make one turn instead of
how long he'll do it, but he's a pretty good road racer. I mean, he's done well on road courses, and he's had experience. He's done the Daytona 24. He's done sports cars. He's he can drive anything. Yeah,
he said he kind of grew up with the IndyCar background. Fan. And
like
a
Jeff
big
Gordon.
fan of it. Yep.
Jeff Gordon wanted to race he was going to race IndyCars, and I think he had a test but he couldn't, he knew the money wasn't there. And this was back when IndyCar was pretty big still. So, obviously for Jimmie's career, he could have been like Scott Dixon, who hasn't done badly, but he's not as well known. Like most people, you say Scott Dixon, they're like, who? They don't know who he is compared to like Jimmie Johnson.
Right,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and Jimmie's going to be racing for Chip Ganassi in the NTT IndyCar Series. He's got a 2-year deal, and Carvana, the online car retailer, just signed on as their sponsor. They're going to be funding 13 races for Jimmie, and it'll be exciting to see him doing some of these different races.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's 13 races. That's got to be 13 races per year, because I'm thinking, IndyCar has about. I mean, there are only a few. One of the problems with IndyCar now is the ovals are kind of dying off right now. Some of the good, you're going to have Indy 500 and Texas,
and I guess you said there's a few oval races that he's not going to be doing.
No, he won't do any. I think it's a mistake for him. He should do the Indy 500. That's where, and he's got the experience anyway. He could really run well at Indy. I'd love to see him there. Yeah. But maybe he'll do it. Maybe he won't. We'll see.
Well, it's another chapter for Jimmie Johnson, and we're excited to see him doing something a little different.
Yep.
Now moving into some diesel performance news. Firepunk Diesel's S10 just set another diesel world record, kind of beating their own record, actually. October 17th and 18th, the radio versus the world class at No Mercy 11 is where this record was set. The races took place at South Georgia Motorsports Park.
Yeah.
And they set a record pass of 4:11 at 181 miles per hour.
The diesels are getting so fast now. And it's fun to watch them. I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I mean, the way they lay down the power and everything, and just seeing all the smoke coming out, and just it's unbelievable to see. And now this one's kind of a purpose built. It's a lot lighter than some of the ones that are made for the street, but still, these things put out some power and they can lay it down. So obviously, he's right in there. I mean, he's 181 miles an hour. They think he can do 185 or more. So.
Yeah, and speaking of power, the Firepunk Diesel S10 is powered by Cummins-based D&J Precision-built billet diesel engine. We know Drew at D&J, and those guys do some impressive stuff. And there's no doubt they've got the right hookup there for power for this truck.
Well, and it's cool to see the diesel guys getting some coverage and I think that side of drag racing and stuff is starting to come on a little bit more. People are realizing these things make a lot of power, and they're fun to watch. They really are,
Well, the crazy thing is, according to LSI, who's behind Hot Shot Secret, who sponsors Firepunk Diesel, said that they expect these guys to be able to make somewhere in the 3-second pass range with a little bit more tweaking and some more runs, which is truly insane.
Oh yeah, I mean that's it's fun to watch the development of the engines and how guys are really thinking differently and applying their what they're learning to the track, and that's where you really see what works. So, we kind of know some of the behind the scenes, how they built the motors, what they're doing behind it, but until you see it on the track or the dyno, but it's more fun to watch on the track. I'm sorry, dynos are. Their dyno competitions are neat, watching numbers and all that, but I like to see them go down the track.
It's nice to see the motion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, as Brendan said, sticking with some diesel performance, we were lucky enough to be close by to the King of the Street Challenge this year, which took place in West Salem, Ohio. We're here in Akron, Ohio, so it's about a 30-minute drive, and we got invited
Dragway
out.
42.
Yeah, we got invited out to Dragway 42 to see the King of the Street competition, and it was pretty neat.
Yeah, again, it was. I mean, I hadn't seen. We know about like Diesel Motorsports and some of the diesel drag racing stuff, which I've been invited to, never been able to make it to any of those events. So I was really looking forward to this, and Yeah, they didn't disappoint. I mean, now we didn't stick around to see the other parts of the event because King of the Street is that 3-part or 4-part, whatever you have to do: sled pull, drag race, then a 100-mile street.
Correct.
It's not a race, but I think it's
it's a 100-mile street cruise. Street
kind
drive.
I think it's more like
as well as a dirt drag.
Yeah, there's a dirt
so
drag.
There's 5 different events these guys have to perform in and make it through, and it was a 3-day event. So a lot to go into that weekend. Trying to make.
When
it through.
I look at the results here, I'm kind of like, what happened? The guys that were really good in the drag racing part, they didn't even make it into the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, they were really good at, but that just shows some of the guys that you have to have compromises in this kind of event, which I think this event could really be big and really take off because it does show it's basically a street truck. These things are they're trailered in, but guys they'll switch over to their drag tires to run on the drag strip, and then they've got they'll put on their dualies to do the sled pull. Mm-hmm. They've got big digger tires to put on for doing the mud pulls or the mud drag races, and and then they put street tires on to drive 100 miles. So the combination of all of that makes it really unique.
Absolutely.
And the biggest challenge there is. So some of the trucks that were really good in that drag strip, that we saw, I'm thinking they're going to be at the top of the board, but no, they didn't even make the top 5. So
and we don't know all the details of what might have went wrong with a couple of those teams. But like Brendan said, this is a newer event. This was the 3rd annual event for King of the Street, put on by Smoke and Speed, and it was very cool to be out there checking that out. And just a congrats to the top 5 competitors. In first place was Kevin Payne. Second place was Logan Epling. Third place was Ben Francis. Fourth was David Petrick. And 5th was Joey Adelman. And again, congrats to those guys. And like I said, really cool to check that out.
Yeah, that was a cool event.
All right, well, moving onto some trade show stuff that's happening this fall. We've probably all heard a little bit about SEMA 360 and what they're doing.
SEMA, no SEMA. It's SEMA 360, and it's more like a SEMA 180 going. But
absolutely, this is not going to be the typical SEMA show, but they are kicking off the keynote with a couple big names. Mike Rowe, who you guys will know from Dirty Jobs, and a little connection to Ford, and Tanner Faust, who is a longtime racer and a former co-host of Top Gear
America.
Yep. And
different, but they're both good guys, I think, and good fit for the SEMA crowd. But it is going to be interesting to see how if they can generate any kind of buzz around SEMA time, over the interwebs and with our Zoom cameras and all that. But hey, I'll tune in to check it out and see what they have. I mean, they're still going to have seminars and events and webinars, which you can do at your in your shop or at home or whenever you want to. So I think there'll be some good things coming out of it.
No, they're keeping this a trade only deal like it's always been out in Vegas. And
you got to register.
You got to register, but
like you would your normal badge and everything.
But like Brendan said, you got all the seminars and different companies there available to you to check out, and that kicks off Monday, November 2nd at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So very, very curious to see how that goes, and I think they got a couple good keynote guys to start it off.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. They always you got to have somebody to kind of bring out the people to get excited about the event. So Mike Rowe, I mean, he's a good person. He's very down to earth kind of trades guy. So he's kind of the guy that get dirty jobs, whatever. I think he's done some of these jobs working in, now if you've ever worked in a diesel shop or anything like that, you get dirty. So
No, I'm sure he's got some good stories that
it
he'll
should
break
be good
out.
to hear some of that.
All right. Well, going back to NASCAR one more time, we told you guys about the news that Jordan was coming in as a team owner, which now is about a month old. But they just announced the team name, which is going to be 2311 Racing, and the team car number.
No, it's 2311.
It's 20. It's got the Roman numerals in there, but yeah, it's pronounced 2311. But the XI is in the logo, and shocker, the car number is also number 23. But according to Jordan, he left it up to Bubba Wallace, who ultimately said he was
Wallace
happy.
Should have said, "I want 43." That was his number from Pet. That's Petty's number, but I don't think that would have gone down well. But I mean, I think having number 23, who knows who's going to sponsor it? But I could see a Michael Jordan, his brand sponsoring it, but. Maybe I'm sure they'll have other sponsors, but to see a number 23 like that with Jordan behind it will be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and sticking with that theme, they unveiled that they're gonna have some red, black, and white in the logo, which follows the Chicago Bulls colors as well. But as you said, there's still some stuff that's up in the air. Whether this is going to be backed by Toyota and Joe Gibbs.
They don't want any of his Washington Wizards era, wasn't he? What number
I think everyone's forgetting about that.
Yeah, it was, will his number be retired in Washington? And do the Wizards, are they even around anymore? I don't think they are?
Yeah,
okay.
I think they're still a team.
They're probably better than the Cavs right now. So.
All right, and just to wrap up the show, we got a couple things going on here at Engine Builder as we near the end of the year. Primarily a few awards and contests that we've done over the years. We'll be back again for 2020, and the first one being the Engine of the Year contest, which stems from our Engine of the Week series that's sponsored by Pengrade Motor Oil, Scat Crankshafts, and L-Ring DOS Original. We take the top 10 from the 52 engines that we featured this year, and we put those top 10 into a voting contest on our website and on our social media channels.
We need to have a get out the vote kind of campaign, I think, Yeah,
so right after you guys are done watching all these political ads.
When you're done, we're going to have ads for getting out the vote for the top.
The voting is not over.
Right.
But this is hopefully way more fun than dealing with the politics this year.
Exactly. You'll get to vote for something fun that'll mean something.
Yeah, so that'll be on enginebuilder.com/engine of the year and on our social media channels starting November 9th. And similarly, our Diesel of the Year contest will also be kicking off that same week. Diesel of the Week and Diesel of the Year is sponsored by AMSOIL, and that will also feature 52 performance diesel engines that have been in that series, and a top 10 that you guys will get to vote on, again, on our website and on our social media channels.
When will the results be? When are we announcing?
The results will be in December, early December, around when PRI normally would be.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we normally have an end of the year.
We have singers, and are we going to have like the band,
Yeah, we normally have an end of the year party, and that's unfortunately just not going to happen this year.
Maybe we can have like a Zoom party and have a couple of cocktails to toast the winners and stuff. Stay tuned.
Details on all that is still in the works. But the last award and contest that we have out there is the America's Best Engine Shops, and that is one that stemmed from our Engine Builder of the Year program. Yep. It's been renamed in recent years, but prize is still the same. We're looking for the best engine building and machine shop folks out there in racing and performance, vintage, and diesel. So there's the three categories.
And if you think you're qualified, or you have a shop that you can nominate somebody, or can you give us a heads up, like, hey, look at this shop?
Yeah. Okay. So shops can nominate themselves. You guys can go to topenginebuilders.com to sign up for the award. Make your nominations there. As Brendan said, if you have a shop that you guys know that you want to submit for the award, you can do that as well. and that'll be kicking off here in November. And those
we do
winners
a
will be
feature on these guys, right?
Yep, the winners get featured in our December issue, and you get plenty of publicity.
World famous, you
That's
know.
right.
Yep. All right.
So that'll do it for this episode of Intellectual Horsepower. I'm Greg Jones.
I'm Brendan Baker.
And we appreciate you guys tuning in.